blah, 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 blah.
What is going on, my specialist? SPC here, and a happy May the 4th. So, guys, welcome to a special May the 4th edition of the Midwest Cantina podcast. And today I've got myself a guest. I have got George the Jedi here.
Hello there. I'm a Jedi named George who likes to stream on Twitch once every 77 years.
So, guys, we're going to have a pretty good conversation here. We don't really have much of a topic. We're just going to basically be talking Star Wars since it is, again, May the 4th, Star Wars Day. So,
May the 4th be with you.
Yes, good. So, all right. So, I suppose let's just kick this off. So, George, why don't you tell us your Star Wars story? Essentially, what got you into Star Wars and stuff like that?
Well, I don't remember the age, but I was very young, and my parents had an original, I believe, VHS of the first Star Wars movie, Episode 4, and we sat around and all watched it together. I always thought that the lightsabers were called lifesavers for a long time, but my love for it kind of grew more with more time over the years. It kind of just grew and grew and grew until here it is now. I'm like a huge Star Wars fan, and heck, that's my persona's name here is Jedi. Star Wars is very much either tied for my favorite franchise or just barely second, and it's just I love it. I love the storytelling. I love the creativeness. I love the video games. I love the fan films. I love the lightsaber fights, the space battles. I love the characters. They're just so in depth, and it's just very good.
So I guess what's your favorite Star Wars movie?
That has to be tied with Episode 4 and 3, just because of how much I loved those films, just their stories and fighting. But I know 5 and 6 are technically better in terms of telling their story more, while 4 is more for kids, and then 3 was kind of like George Lucas's best of the prequel trilogy. So they're technically better films, but those are just my favorite. Episode 3 because I love the lightsaber fighting. It's just I'm a lightsaber fighting guy. That's my whole thing. That's my favorite thing about Star Wars.
Yeah, and there's definitely plenty to choose from when it comes to Episode 3. Which one's your favorite out of all those battles?
Obi-Wan and Anakin.
Oh, yep. That was a dumb question. Yeah, but
I learned that how they spin the sabers and all that. I learned how to do that because of how much I love Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, for me, yeah, that's definitely my favorite lightsaber duel of all time. My second it's tied between Vader versus Luke from Episode 5 or Luke versus Vader from Episode 6. They're both
Absolutely.
Just so high up there. I can't ever choose hardly.
Mm-hmm. And then I also love Episode 4 because I love how it began, and then the introduction to Obi-Wan for the first time, who is my favorite Star Wars character from the movies. Even though the fight may not be exciting, if you want an exciting version, there's a fan film version of editing that fight with deep faking that is really good.
Yeah, that one's pretty insane. I've seen that one before. If I always ask people, I guess I could ask you since we're here. Do you think they would have been different if they would have actually made them in chronological order?
Yeah, definitely. 100% it would have been completely different because we wouldn't have the same actors and stuff. If you read some of the audition stuff, there was a guy from the Charlie Chan films, if you ever watched those, they were a detective series. The number one or the oldest son auditioned to be Obi-Wan. So there could have been completely different people if the cards were done right. But I think it would definitely be a lot different. I think the first three films would be more action packed, while the originals would have been more akin to how we got. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
and I think just the cities wouldn't look right, and like it would kind of, I don't know. I think it'd be a little bit more limited.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I mean, like, the Duel of Fates is like just such
Mm-hmm.
an iconic duel right now. I mean, if we would have got it at like the speed we see, Obi-Wan and Vader fighting in A New Hope,
Yeah.
I mean, definitely wouldn't be as exciting to watch.
To be fair with the New Hope fight, though, they had a weaker lightsaber prop. They were originally instructed that the weapon could only be wielded with two hands. There's no way someone could wield it one-handed, and that was basically it.
Yeah. I mean, like, even for the first ever lightsaber duel, I mean, it's not a bad one by any means. Like,
Mm-hmm.
even as much as I love Yoda to death, he's like my favorite character. I actually think he's got one of the two worst lightsaber duels in the entire saga.
With Dooku or
With
Palpatine?
with Dooku, but I mean
Okay.
the worst one to me, in my opinion, is still Obi-Wan and Anakin versus Dooku from Attack of the Clones.
Oh yeah. That well, to be fair, it was Obi-Wan versus Dooku, then Anakin versus Dooku.
That is fair. I mean, either way, it's not enjoyable for me. Like, Attack of the Clones for me is just overall my least favorite of
Yeah.
the Star Wars movies.
That would probably be very close for me being the worst, I think, that one. Like it tried, but it just it's if it's not my I don't think it's my worst, but I think it's very close to being my worst.
Who would you say is the worst?
Episode 8.
Episode 8.
I really did not like that. I loved its visuals. It in terms of all the Star Wars visuals, that's like the best film to watch if you want eye candy. Like
Oh yeah,
100%.
yeah. I will say this: it is a gorgeous movie. See, like, when I first walked out of the theater watching The Last Jedi, like, I didn't know how to feel. Like, I wanted to be like excited, but at the same time I was like just confused and I didn't know how I felt. But like, over the years I've watched it more and more, and I've come to like it more. It's like a middle, like, I'm mixed on it. Like, there are
Yeah.
things I love about the film, but there's also things that I
Mm-hmm.
really don't like about the film too.
Yeah. But I'm sure like everyone's covered that ground, so like to just go over it, like people don't like the cantina scene because it kind of doesn't look like Star Wars. It filled nothing and it just didn't work. Uh, Luke's death, people are debating that whether it's good or not. I think the death is fine, but not the death is fine. The idea of killing Luke is fine, but the way they did it was wrong. It
Okay.
was it was like a complete fake out. So they make it look like Kylo Ren got the final strike and he goes out like Obi-Wan, and like your emotions are running thinking that he's finally gone and he did his sacrifice, and then they do this cool thing where he realizes he's actually alive, and then it was actually a force projection, which was awesome, and it's like, oh my god, he's living through the next film, and then you see him like slowly crawling up on top of a rock, and like, what are they doing?
And
Wait,
then,
why is he dying?
yeah. Wait, there goes his robe now.
He
Yeah,
teleported to another planet. He's just naked somewhere.
yeah, right. There you go. So I guess since you didn't like The Last Jedi, did you like The Force Awakens at least?
Yes, I did, and I also liked Episode 9. I just think the only problem with that trilogy I have is that they didn't plan it out. It was just film, 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 and they kind of didn't work with each other. But everyone's covered this to the point where it's like redundant. So if you love the film or hate the film, that's great. I can see why people love it and or hate it. I'm just more like they were fun. 8 I didn't enjoy as much, but oh well.
Yeah, see, for me, like, The Force Awakens was like my overall like best movie theater experience. So, like,
Yeah,
it's my number 3 on my Star Wars list.
yeah.
And then I really like The Rise of Skywalker. I
Mhm.
know it's a very, jumbled mess, and I know they do a lot of jumping around and some things don't make sense, but for me I never know how to word it. It's just a
Yeah,
beautiful film, like, because each one of
it's
these three,
nostalgia.
yeah, exactly. Like, the other thing I noticed too, like, I didn't notice it until I found a picture on Instagram, but all three of the films, whatever their like logo color is, like, that color
Mhm.
is so prominent in the film.
Yeah.
which I really like too. Like The Force Awakens, you do see a lot of yellow. Obviously, The Last Jedi, you see a lot of red, and obviously, of course, Rise of Skywalker, you see a lot of blue.
Mm-hmm. Dabba dee babba die.
Yeah.
One thing I can say positive about The Last Jedi is that it was the first time my dad went to a film in like over 20 years because like he wanted to go with the family for Christmas because that was our Christmas gift. Like the whole family got to go together,
Mm-hmm.
and he actually enjoyed it. He really liked a lot of the concepts of it, and liked how like Luke was angry about letting Ben down and all that. Like stuff like that was good to him, and he really enjoyed it. And it was cool to hear his perspective. And I was like, yeah, they did those parts right. Like it made me look at it a little bit differently.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, obviously, of course, everybody in the world's got their opinion on The Last Jedi, and like you
Yeah.
said, it's been said a million times on YouTube and everywhere else, and I'm sure people you talk to in your daily life
Yeah.
probably talk about it as well.
The one thing I don't like when people critique it is like saying how terrible Ryan Johnson or J.J. Abrams are. Like, 'cause if you watch the behind the scenes, like they're super passionate, like what they're doing. I think it's not fully their fault. Maybe they didn't understand what they were writing a bit, but I don't think they're the ones to really blame per se.
Yeah, no, I don't blame them for the films turning out the way they are. I mean, they just did, what they were capable of to the best of their abilities, and I have nothing against any one of them guys.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can willingly say about a year and a half ago, I went on a little tangent and I ended up being a little more toxic than I ever wanted to be. And I was dissing The Last Jedi and Ryan Johnson. But over the years, I've just, come to just be like, it's not Ryan Johnson's fault. He didn't ruin Star Wars like a lot of people like to say that he did. He
Or
just,
like how basically what they were saying with George Lucas about the prequels.
yeah, like when you got guys on the street with guitars singing George Lucas raped our childhood. Like,
God.
no, he didn't. He just wanted to do something different with his films. That's the
Yeah.
same thing with Johnson. He took a risk. He did his own thing. Some people loved it. Some people hated it.
Mm-hmm. Well, like with Star Wars in general, it's all about taking risks. That's like the first films did, the prequels did, and then the sequels kind of try to do that as well. I just think it. You know what? I think we should stop worrying about the sequel trilogy because we just talk about the negatives and the negatives and the negatives. They'll just add on to each other, and let's just keep Star Wars positive. That's all I say.
Exactly. I mean, if it's not your favorite, it's not your favorite. Just move on. At the end of the day, as much as we all love Star Wars, they're at the end of the day, they're just movies.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess kind of getting like leaning in with like the film aspects. I mean, obviously, of course, there are passionate Star Wars fans who have, taken time out of their lives to make their own kind of films or the quote
Mm-hmm.
unquote fan films. What are your takes on fan films?
As someone who has been a voice actor in one, I really enjoy them. There's this website called Casting Call Club where you could people online can audition for projects, whether they're paid or just nonprofit for fun. And one of the first ones I did was for a Star Wars film called The Path to Destruction by this guy called Delta 537. This German guy who kind of English was a second language, but he still understood it pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And like if there's ever a problem, I try to tell him like, hey, this doesn't make sense. And over time, he crafted this really good Star Wars machinima fan film, and I got to be two characters for it. The story kind of takes place 10 years ish after Execute Order 66, where it focuses on three Jedi's. My character is sort of the main focus, but the overarching story is this other character who kind of disobeys the Jedi code and falls in love with a woman and goes into hiding with her. And they're trying to find him, both this Jedi that I play, his master, and Darth Vader. And without spoiling it, it's pretty good. Only drawbacks, I would say, the first few episodes, the audio mix isn't that great, but he corrected it. And the lightsaber fights are kind of long because it's a machinima inside of video games, so the lightsaber fights aren't as flashy as they should be. But other than that, it's really good craft. In terms of actual fan films, I love watching them to death. I love watching the saber comp people, those people who do film fights for just lightsabers every year. I've entered a couple times; they're fun, and I also just love what the Star Wars fan theory guy did with the Vader fan film.
Oh yeah, I praise that film. Like he put a lot of work. You can definitely tell with like everything that he does with even like making just the Star Wars content to begin
Mm-hmm.
with. I'd have to say probably two of my favorites, like, even I guess including the Vader fan film. I like
Mm-hmm.
the one called Apprentice, the one with Darth Maul.
Oh yes.
That one is just phenomenal. I could watch it over and over. And the other one I like is called The Last Padawan.
Oh, I think I remember that one.
Yeah, it's he like I don't even remember where he is, but like in the end he ends up fighting an Inquisitor, and it's like, oh, like like at first I never knew what an Inquisitor was until I kind of started watching clips and stuff from like Rebels and
Mm-hmm.
even kind of doing a little bit of research on like the comic books, because I guess the Vader comic books are pretty heavily with Inquisitors.
Mm-hmm. The kind of like the Inquisitors, like they're forced to suffer under Vader. Like one time they like just cut off a dude's arm just to teach him suffering.
Yeah, I just watched a video about that actually. I think it was the well, I know he did it to quite a few Inquisitors actually.
Yeah. I think there's only one Inquisitor I found weird is like this really buff person who like acts like a teenager towards Vader, like whatever. And it's like, Vader, why haven't you stabbed this person 17 times yet? So I don't know what Vader sees in this person.
Right. Because I know, like, I guess I don't know if you've been playing it or not, but like in Fallen Order, I mean, the Inquisitors are pretty heavily in there.
Yeah, I've played the first 2 hours of the game. I need to finish it. I just keep putting it off. I kind of went back to playing Knights of the Old Republic 2, the modded edition, because I finally got the mods in that kind of complete the story that was cut out because they had to rush it for Christmas.
Oh,
But
okay.
I enjoyed it. The Inquisitors are very tough in that game,
Oh,
uh,
yes.
especially like at the beginning because you're barely reconnecting to the Force or whatever, so you have to try and learn all that.
Yeah. All I can say without spoiling anything, man, like it gets better. It's like the story just gets a lot deeper and deeper, and you start
Mm-hmm.
learning more and learning Cal's backstory and stuff, and it's like, oh,
That sounds
especially too.
exciting.
Oh yeah, and especially today too. Like we just there was just a new update for the game for May the 4th. You got like a free skin and like these new combat challenges or something. So
Yeah.
I'm actually looking forward very much to getting back into Fallen Order.
Yes, Star Wars guy, I do play Knights of the Republic a lot. I enjoy that game so much. It is my favorite video game of all time. And then the sequel, like how I would describe it to someone if they're interested in watching it, if you're a casual fan, you'll really love the first game, and if you're like a hardcore Star Wars fan, you're going to really get into the second game because that's how in depth the characters go throughout time. You obviously meet new characters each game, and it's just well crafted story. The only problem with it is like the combat's dated, but I've kind of grown used to it because I've beaten it like over 10 times.
Wow, really?
And 90% of the time, it's the good guy siding story.
You see now everybody talks about Knights of the Old Republic. I can willingly say I've never played it.
For do you know the story at all or no?
I don't know anything about it. Like anything.
So my pitch to you: the first game takes place 4,000 years before the movies, in the height of the Republic, when there's a Sith Empire and a Jedi Empire or Republic Empire. So there's an Empire and then the Republic. Um, a new war is broken out by the lead of Darth Revan, and I'm sure you've heard the legacy of Darth Revan multiple times.
Yep.
Him and Malak are waging war, but eventually Revan is betrayed by Malak and becomes the new leader. Revan was more strategical, while Malak is more brute force, so he's trying to basically destabilize everything while Revan was trying to preserve everything so there would be an empire later. And now with Malak at the helm, the Jedi are really reeling. So now they have to try and find this secret map to a weird structure by the very first Force users. And I won't reveal what that structure is yet, but it's named the Star Forge. So our story actually begins, though, that's like all prelude. Our story begins on the ship the Endar Spire, which is on a recon mission, but gets intercepted by the Sith forces. Our character is on that ship and gets disturbed awake. And they have to escape the ship with this old man named Tras Olga, who is like your guide into learning all the game mechanics and stuff. Eventually, you learn that there is a very young Jedi with a very rare power called battle meditation that needs to be protected, because if Malak gets this girl, the war is basically over. She's one of the only reasons why the Jedi are surviving. So with the power battle meditation, it causes troops on your side to focus more and get better adrenaline, and it discourages the enemy. So eventually you run into a Sith and Trask sacrifices himself for you to get off. You meet a couple of the crew and you escape and land on a city called Terrace, a city planet. It's kind of like Coruscant, except it's a lot more sinister. Like there's a top level where the elite can only be at, and like humans, any aliens need a pass. If not, the poor and the aliens have to live on the underworld. And if you are a criminal, you live in the bottom level, where you are basically living in sewage 24/7.
Huh. That's actually pretty interesting.
And the terrible thing about landing on this planet is it's under a quarantine of the Sith, so you are on lockdown. This planet basically is no one can leave without a pass. So you have to try and figure out how to escape the planet and also find the Jedi who has now gone missing on this planet.
Huh.
And you have three choices of what your character can be. They can be a scout, so like a type of person that goes out ahead of a battle and like surveys the land, a soldier, or a smuggler.
Smuggler. Ooh, I'm interested in that.
And then over time, you can potentially become a Jedi. I won't spoil more of the story, but it is very good, and it's a great way to start that learning more about the Old Republic era is that first game. The second game gets a little bit more dark and sinister, but you can also add more branching story, and your actions actually affect the characters. Sometimes they'll stop talking to you after a point. Yes, I would love an open game, by the way. Depending on how they make it, some open games are boring, Star Wars guys. So it kind of depends. Like they have to make sure it's action packed, and you don't need to use fast travel all the time. Because otherwise you already have that with the Old Republic, sort of. So it depends on how they make it.
Huh. Yeah, even another game I've never played. I just bought them here recently, like right after Fallen Order came out. But like even the Force Unleashed, like those games are just so like even highly praised too.
They're very much great combo hack and slash games, and it kind of like sets up like other stories, like sort of like how the Empire had secret apprentices before they changed it to Inquisitors. So Starkiller, the main character in the game, is one of those secret apprentices that Vader's trying to use to eventually overthrow the Emperor. And it's kind of like the model for what Luke would have been if he joined Vader.
Yeah, because he's like super, super like overpowered essentially, right?
He can go toe to toe with the Emperor, basically.
Because it's weird, like all these Star Wars things I've either never watched or like never really like played, I guess. Like most of them I pretty much know kind of like what happens. Like I know about Starkiller, and I know like the second game he's like a clone or something.
Yeah. Well, if you want, there's also the DLCs. So in each game there's a good side and a bad side ending. In the bad side ending, he actually still survives and replaces Vader, but not by his own will. and then in the sequel game, um, he is basically a villain, but he's also still being chased by the Empire. It's without fully spoiling it.
Yeah, because I mean, like, I want to play them because, like I said, I hear such high things. Like even again, like the Knights of the Old Republic, like
Mm-hmm.
everybody just swears up and down by that game, and I think it came out kind of around the time I ended up just becoming like a casual Star Wars fan.
Yeah, it was around the 2000s era. So mainly it does look dated, the game, but you can download mods to make it look better if your computer or console can handle it. If not, the vanilla game is fine. If there are glitches, there's a pretty active community that will discuss and like help you try and figure out what's going on. Like I have a glitch that I just where my character will stop moving, so I have to like save game, go back to menu, and then reload the game, and then I'll be able to move again.
Hmm. And the Star Wars guy, he's got a pretty interesting question here. What if Darth Vader became the new Emperor?
So I think like this is pretty accurate. Back to like sort of the fan film thing.
Mhm.
There's a guy who sound not Star Wars theories, but I think it's called Star Wars comics. He sounds pretty much like he's the equivalent of Star Wars theory. It's the other channel, and he did a fan fiction about Darth Jar Jar Binks. The whole theory about him being a Sith Lord and being more powerful than the Emperor. I'm sure you've heard this fan theory numerous
Many,
times.
many, many times.
So in his fan theory, he made like a motion comic with this on his YouTube channel. And he basically Jar Jar kills the Emperor and offers Anakin a spot. Anakin refuses and leaves and basically builds up a resistance to Jar Jar Binks and becomes like Lord King. But the thing is, like, he's overly aggressive and isn't much of a leader. So if he were to become like an actual leader of an empire, it would be kind of warmongering to the point where he would run out of resources. And he's not a diplomat; he's a soldier. That's why he was easy to subjugate.
Mm-hmm.
So, in my opinion, I don't think he could run an empire that great. He would be a crushing and dominant force, but it would fall apart like Rome did.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. I really think Vader's just more. I don't want to say like a follower, but I think he'd make like just a better like general. I guess we could kind of
Mm-hmm.
say. I mean, I feel like if he actually did take over the galaxy, like after actually defeating the Emperor or whatever happens to the Emperor, I really don't think Vader would get a lot of support. I feel like he'd just do what he normally does. If somebody just disobeyed him, he'd just force choke him and be like, "No, you're joining me." Like, oh, okay, okay.
The only way I think that would be the only way he could be a good leader is if he actually did convince his kids to turn. But I
Yeah,
don't think he could, and also he may not learn about Leia. That's the thing. This is like depending on what canon and what time. Because like when he learns about Leia, Luke is fully convinced to not join. So it's basically one of those impossible scenarios. Because Leia knows how to run a government, or at least.
yeah. I mean, she would actually, I think, be a better. How do I want to work this? I guess quote unquote apprentice. If
Mm-hmm.
figuratively say if Vader became the new emperor and then he needed somebody by his side, so he'd end up getting Leia. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I could see something like that happening.
Yeah, definitely. That if he learned that it was his daughter and actually sensed a force connection, then that could happen. But that's a big what if. So in that terms of theory and regard, I don't see it happening.
Yeah. Even that Star Wars guy here, join us, Luke. Together we can rule the galaxy. One of the infamous lines from The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, basically, Luke did try. I'm sure he was tempted by it, but I think he was too close to Ben. That I think if if Ben hadn't been there first, I think maybe there would have been a chance for a conversion. But I think Ben just made enough of a strong impact on him.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's essentially nothing against like Uncle Owen or anything, but I feel like Obi-Wan or Ben was more of like the father figure that
Mm-hmm.
Luke was looking for in his life.
True that. Speaking of Obi-Wan, did you watch? Do you watch the show Death Battle?
I watch it occasionally. I think the last one I watched was Darth Maul versus Spider-Man.
Oh, that's the other guys. That's the Bat and the Sun people. I'm talking about the animated guys.
Oh,
They're actually called Death Battle. The other one is Super Powered Beatdown. I love those guys too.
well,
And
maybe
they
that's
got it.
the
So
one I'm thinking of.
they got it so wrong with the Darth Maul versus Spider-Man. But that one's based off of an audience vote. This one, Death Battle, they do quote unquote research and do the stats and the math work. Half the time they get it right, half the time they don't really. This is not me throwing shade at them. This is more like there are times they kind of didn't do the research, and it's probably because they're on a tight schedule. But they did an episode of Obi-Wan versus a character from Naruto today, and it was actually pretty well animated. And there were some jokes, like a couple high ground jokes and a couple Naruto jokes if you're into that. I never got fully into Naruto, but I recognize some of them.
Oh man, I mean, wait, did they do Goku versus Superman?
Yeah, twice.
Twice. Okay, them I have seen, but I've never seen any of those other ones that you
Yeah.
just said. That Star Wars guy, what if Ben Kenobi was still alive during episode 7? Would he train Luke early as a Jedi?
Do you mean Ray?
Yeah, I was going to say, because Luke would be probably about Kenobi's age by then.
Yeah, Kenobi would be probably on the deathbed, probably. So I'm not sure what you mean by. Did you mean episode? Yeah, I'm so kind of confused by that structuring.
Yeah, I guess if you mean episode 4, that's honestly how I would have personally, I guess, me, if Luke wanted to be essentially bigger and better. Okay, yeah, episode 4, okay. I guess I would have kept Luke, like just kind of like let Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru know, like, hey, I have Anakin and Padme's son, but I'm going to train him in the ways of the Force. I definitely think that Luke would have definitely been, I guess personally, I think he would have probably been about episode 6 Luke by the time we actually first met him in A New Hope.
Okay. I feel like with that, the one problem would be I think Obi-Wan had to deal with a lot of stuff first before he could do that.
Yeah, like his PTSD from what happened with Anakin and Order 66 and all that.
And then another thing too is like, what if when Luke was training at a young age, accidentally reached out too far, and then that would have ended the whole operation. So I think waiting was probably a good idea because he was going to learn it fast anyway. I think because he knew of how strong his father was.
Oh yeah, I agree with that 100%.
It just the timing of everything just sucks.
Yeah, yeah, that's for sure on that one. So,
but that's most movies. There's always got to be that inconvenience, otherwise there's no movie.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I guess we've kind of talked about your favorite character being Obi-Wan. What's the reasoning behind you liking Obi-Wan so much?
Probably when I was a kid, it was because of the blue lightsaber, but over time, it was the character and the personality and the actors, both Alec Guinness and Ewan McGregor. I like the voice actor for Clone Wars as well, even though I feel like his voice is more of a random Jedi rather than Obi-Wan per se. But I still just love the character and they're kind of like wiseness and like the calculated way they talk with their words and the bits of humor they have.
Yeah, the troll, as they like to call him sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really do enjoy Obi-Wan. I mean, I like how he can be like the wise, good Jedi knight and master that he is, but then at the same time, he can really bring out those quippy little jokes like he does in Episode 3. Like, oh, don't taunt him, Anakin. Talking about Grievous, like, oh, you're shorter than I expected. Like, oh,
not now.
Don't test his patience. Like,
I'll don't worry, Anakin. I'll rip his chest open later for you.
Yeah, I'll shoot it a couple times for you.
I'll be uncivilized just for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my favorite character is Yoda, and I honestly think that's probably never going to change. I mean, like, I've learned a lot of life lessons from Yoda in my life, even though, of course, he's a very fictional character. But I've, like, do or do not, there is no try, or hate leads to anger, anger leads to, or no, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. Like, it's so true. I definitely would have to say maybe a very unpopular opinion here, but my second favorite character probably in the entire saga now is Kylo.
He's a good. He is one of those characters that is very hit or miss with the community. The only thing that has been really bad about the character is the spawning of Reylos, but we won't go into that. There are great Reylos out there, by the way. There's not a hate on all of them. Don't put a bounty on me, please, like you did with Finn. It's just some of y'all can be very toxic and some of y'all can be very nice. If you understand that, I don't hate you guys. Even I don't hate the toxic people. But there's a point where it's like, hey, don't bully people just because they don't agree with you.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you.
I have a feeling I'm going to get some angry messages if this somehow blows up.
Good. Let the hate flow through you.
I'm not worried about the hate. I'm more worried about the death threats.
I mean, I was another thing I've talked about here on this podcast is like the toxicity within the fan base. I mean, if somebody doesn't agree with what you like, just at least have the respect and be like, okay, I can see where you're coming from, but here's my reasoning. Where instead it's like, oh, you like The Last Jedi? Oh, you must be a Disney shill. You must be getting a paycheck. Yeah, I've got a whole whopping 80 cents from Disney just for talking positive about their movies. Yeah, woohoo!
Hey, can we just be like the Animal Crossing and Doom Eternal communities? Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So, guess that Star Wars guy, he asks a lot of questions, so I like going to his stuff. But what is your opinion on this? Luke Skywalker was the real chosen one.
No, he was. I personally disagree with the idea of a chosen one for Star Wars in the first place, but in terms of the actual narrative, I think he was the one to bring back the chosen one. So his destiny was to, if you watch Lord of the Rings, it's the one. Sam is the one who carries Frodo. So Luke was that story's Sam, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that would make sense. And I would also assume, too, since you're a Kenobi fan, I would assume you're pretty excited for the Obi-Wan Kenobi Disney Plus series.
That's the reason why I'm getting Disney Plus. Not The Mandalorian, which I'm going to get Disney Plus anyway early to watch that because I do want to see it. And I'm not saying it's bad. I actually think it's going to be awesome, and that's another reason why to get it. But the whole reason why I wanted Disney Plus was for that Obi-Wan series. Because I love Ewan McGregor, and I can't wait to see what he does. And they better not mess it up because Ewan McGregor is tied for the best Obi-Wan.
Would you obviously, I would assume you say Alec Guinness is the best Obi-Wan?
Ewan McGregor and Alec Guinness. They're both one and the same in my opinion.
Okay. I respect that. I mean, I like Ewan just a little bit more than Guinness, but it's literally by like a hair, like a beard hair of theirs.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So, and it looks like, too, that Star Wars guy is revealing all his favorite characters. His favorite is Anakin Skywalker, which definitely, I think that'd be a lot of people's. Second is Palpatine.
Good.
And third is Qui-Gon Jinn.
I don't know who you are, but I will find you, and I will kill you.
Classic. If
we go outside of the movies, Darth Revan is one of my favorites. Juhani from that same game. I love Starkiller. I love Kyle Katarn. If we go back to the movies, I love Darth Maul a lot. I especially love the original voice compared to the Clone War voice, but they're both good. I love the actor who, oddly enough, the actor in Clone Wars who plays Darth Maul also plays Starkiller.
Yeah, Sam Witwer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he does a good job. I mean, I've even watched a lot of like podcasts with him, and he actually has his own Twitch channel, and he plays a lot of Star Wars games. And
I'll have to find that.
And he was actually also the main guy in a game last year called Days Gone.
Okay.
It's like a zombie survival horror game. He does pretty good in that.
There was also a show. I kind of was watching it with my cousin, who's kind of into like. Basically, it was a vampire werewolf show, and at the time, she was really into that, and it was interesting to watch. It was called To Be Human or something like that, and it was pretty good. Like, he was a good actor in it, but after a while, thinking back to it, it's like, yeah, I don't think I would go back to watch it. Not because of him, but it just wasn't my thing. He was excellent in it, though.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that you probably know a little bit about the expanded universe, a little bit, I would say. Quite a bit.
Give or take. I've learned a lot more from the YouTube channels. My knowledge basically goes to the Knights of the Old Republic era more than further. I know enough about like some of the origins of the Jedi, like they were called something else and they were more like the Gray Jedi or whatever. Mm-hmm. But Knights of the Old Republic is more my cup of tea rather than the Clone Wars per se.
I mean, everybody's, of course, everybody's wired differently. Everybody, likes their own things, and they've all grown up differently. Like I said, I never grew up playing Knights of the Old Republic or anything. And again, I just hear so much love and stuff for that game. And it's just never crossed my path at all.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking right now. They're on sale for $3.49. $3.49, both of them individually. So if you have Steam, now's your time.
Well, I suppose they're Star Wars games, so I suppose they're on sale for today.
And also with the second game, they have you know about the Steam Workshop, right?
Yeah, kind of.
So basically, it's a way that you can install mods to your game, and the second game has the ability to use the Workshop to download mods.
Okay.
I think I have a question for me now.
Yeah, we do here. Have you seen the Clone Wars TV show, and what do you think?
I've seen bits and pieces of it. I'm gonna try and watch the 7th season. I grew to like it more at first. I watched the original film, the 3D one that George Lucas made before the show. I liked it. Then later when I watched it again, I was like, yeah, this is kind of too childish. And every time I would watch, the thing that kind of distanced me from it, it felt a little bit like Obi-Wan was not being portrayed the way I thought he should. So that kind of like made me distant from him a bit. But I kind of grew to appreciate it a little bit more and more and more. I've mentioned the Darth Maul. I love the actor. He does a great job. But I love the voice of the original one in episode 1. But that doesn't deter me from what he's done. In fact, it's a really great job. It's not detracting from him. He actually does a really great job as Darth Maul. And I love the way they brought that character back. Like, at first, I was, like, weary of it. But then later, I enjoyed it more because it brought in the Cyber Maul idea. I just wish they went fully with the lightsaber, because the original Cyber Maul concept had the two-bladed lightsaber, but they were bent. So one would be pointing up and one would be pointing down towards the floor if he had it towards his side. But other than that, I enjoy it. I want to watch more of it. I'm glad that this season is being done rather than the original season 7 that was being planned, because they were about to touch on Knights of the Old Republic, and I kind of don't want another director to touch that before it can be made into its own thing again. Like, for example, with Rebels, they did the Obi-Wan fight versus Darth Maul fight. Now we can't have that for the live action show. And that kind of upsets me because I would love to see Ray Park versus Ewan McGregor fighting again. So that's one of the reasons that pushed me out of it for a while. But I've grown more and more and more able to respect the Clone Wars and enjoy it.
And then I guess the second part of the question: what do you think about people saying the Clone Wars TV show is better than the prequel trilogy?
That's very easy to say that because it adds a lot more to it and a lot more depth. It actually shows the friendship Obi-Wan and Anakin is supposed to have, while the movies sort of shows it like for a couple seconds during some scenes, but then most of the time it's them fighting and getting angry and Anakin being mopey. And
Yeah,
so it definitely is, but I think I would still prefer the films over the show, but I still love the show, if that makes sense. And
yeah,
besides,
definitely.
the real Clone Wars is the 2D one animated by the Samurai Jack people.
Yes, exactly. See, nobody ever talks about the micro series.
Do you remember I can't remember the name of the alien guy that like could reform his body. I had like a friend who made a bunch of fan art of that character that I met at a convention.
Oh, is he like the big hulking kind of droid guy?
Yeah, that like had the human muscle that would like regrow itself.
Oh, I want to say his name was like Dredge or something. Like
That sounds about right.
yeah, because he like for me watching that. I mean, I think one of my big problems with like the new animated Clone Wars TV show is honestly like you with Ewan or with Obi-Wan. It's me with Anakin. Like I need to hear like a Hayden Christensen voice because for me that's my Anakin at least episode 3 Anakin. I still think episode 2 Anakin's the worst character in all of Star Wars.
Yeah,
personally, but that's very distracting for me. Just like Dirge, that's what it is. I knew it was like Dirge. Gotcha. Thank you, that Star Wars guy.
They did write an ending for that character recently, actually.
For
Dirge.
Oh, for Dirge. Oh, okay.
I can tell you it after you finish your Anakin thing.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like I'm more used to hearing like the Hayden Christensen voice. Like for me, nothing against Matt Lanter. I mean, he does good in what he's doing, playing Anakin. He definitely brings a different kind of characteristic to the character.
It kind of brings what Anakin should have been in the second film.
Yes, exactly. I definitely can agree with that. And I will even say I've only watched the first 3 seasons of the Clone Wars, and it took me an entire year to get through because it was just too slow, too boring. The storylines weren't really getting me.
Mm-hmm.
But they do have some good characters in it. Like one character I think I'd like to see maybe eventually become live action is Cad Bane.
Yeah.
Cad Bane was pretty cool. I liked him.
Ventress, even though it was in both, I loved the voice for that one compared to the original Clone Wars, but I think I like the look more of the original Clone Wars, but both are great.
Yeah, exactly. If you could have like that look of Ventress from the micro series, but get this sinister voice from the Clone Wars, I could see that. That would be really good too, because yeah, she had like a deep kind of almost weirdly wheezy kind of voice.
Yeah, it was kind of almost like Yzma, but just trying to be more creepy. If you know, like Yzma from Kronk or Emperor's New
Groove, yes.
Yeah. And I just love the white eyes, like with the no pupil, but they have a ring instead around the edge. That kind of looked cool and distinct.
Yeah, it made her a very like unique character.
Mm-hmm.
But now, like, I will even say this: I didn't like Ahsoka. Like, I'm not a big Ahsoka fan, but I like her in Rebels.
Yeah, she gets a lot better in Clone Wars. At first, it's kind of like that. It's a hard step to get over. It's like that weird thing where people don't like children characters in TV shows, even though they have some of the better arcs. It's just because they can't get over the young voice or something, or just the young character causing problems. It's kind of like that, but she does get better if you can get over that hurdle. I remember. For me at first, it was kind of like, well, why wasn't she there during episode 3? But they explain that later. I think they had to do a bit of rewriting because I always thought in between episode 2 and 3 was a 2-year gap. I guess they've expanded that.
Yeah, they did with this new season.
So they made it a longer war than it was originally in the movies, which they can because, George Lucas has already rewritten the story multiple times and re-edited it. So that's not out of the possibility of reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like even when the Clone Wars movie came out, I mean, Ahsoka was not very well received. Like I watched a podcast with the voice actor Ashley Eckstein, and she said that she kept like reading everything that people didn't like Ahsoka, and apparently she was in her hotel room crying her eyes out, eating cheesecake all night long, trying to make herself feel better.
That's the Star Wars community for you. They did it to Jake Lloyd. They did it to Rose. They did it to Hayden Christensen. I couldn't remember the actress of Rose from episode 8.
Kelly Marie Tran.
Kelly Marie, yeah.
Oh, and Ahmed Best. People bullied him so much that he seriously contemplated suicide.
Do you know he wasn't gonna? He was. Sorry, there was a really big celebrity that was vying for that spot for Jar Jar Binks. Have you heard this story?
No, the only story I've heard was apparently they were in talks with Leonardo DiCaprio playing Anakin for episodes 2 and 3.
Okay, I will give you a guess. So, a popular musician star.
Oh boy.
I'll give you 3 guesses, and I'll give you a cold. I can't give you cold because warm or hot because I don't know genres that very well.
Oh boy.
I'll give you one hint. They're not alive anymore.
They're not alive anymore. Oh, I have 2 at the top of my head. I'm gonna guess either Michael Jackson or Prince.
Michael Jackson.
Really?
He wanted to be Jar Jar Binks. And the story goes, he eventually told George, like, I would rather this be a practical effect and the character to be a little bit more serious. And eventually he went with that. He picked the guy that we all know and love now. And he actually brought him to a Michael Jackson concert, George Lucas. And they went to the back and George says, hey, Michael Jackson, I'd like you to meet Jar Jar Binks. He looks at him and says, what is this? And then leaves.
Oh my God. What?
Yeah.
I'm speechless. What? Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I never heard that story.
I believe that the actor had said that that's what happened and that's his account of it. Now, I'm 99% sure that this is real.
I could not. There's no way I could even imagine Michael Jackson playing Jar Jar Binks in a movie.
Mm-hmm. But it's just so wild that was even discussed, and I wonder how it would be if he actually got his way. We'd
probably be seeing a lot of moonwalking.
Yeah.
Nisa gonna go away.
I think it was either NSYNC or the Backstreet Boys or whatever were supposed to be in episode 2, and they filmed scenes with them, but they cut them.
Oh, that was NSYNC.
Yeah, NSYNC was in episode 2 as Jedis, but they got cut.
Oh, yeah, it was for like his daughter, I believe, or something.
Yeah, something or other like that.
So that Star Wars guy, I love the General Grievous micro series and movie voices. Yeah, I love Grievous in the micro series. Like that episode he's in is literally like a horror movie.
And I believe that's the first time we see General Grievous before the films.
Yep, that's actually when General Grievous first actually debuts in what was then the canon Star Wars. That's how it first started with him.
He got lucky, though. Oh, sorry.
And then the reason he actually wheezes is because while he's taking the Chancellor, he runs into Mace Windu, and Mace Windu uses the Force and like crushes his chest in.
Mm-hmm. Though he got lucky to survive his first encounter where he appears because Shaggy had to leave and go help the Scooby Gang.
Right, right.
and wasn't even using 0.00000000001% of his power. So he got lucky. Oh, I didn't tell you the dirge end. So eventually, he's like this insane bounty hunter that has lost his mind because he's died and died and died and died like over 1,000,000 times because his species reforms itself. So his brain doesn't function normally anymore. So he's kind of more like an enraged animal. And eventually, he's fighting Luke Skywalker, or not Luke, Anakin, excuse me. And Anakin gets the bright idea of damaging his ship to the point where it's going to crash land into a sun. So he just burns to death instantly in a crashed ship.
Oh my god, that's horrible.
Well,
like, I couldn't even imagine that.
So that's one of the comic endings for him. Spoiler, I should have said that first. But if anyone's really that pissed about it, then complain to the birds right over here. I'm complain to CPC birds 3171993, not me.
Yes, I will take all the heat, no pun intended. So I guess to kind of I guess you finish yours.
I was just going to say I'm giving you the cold shoulder.
Hey man, hey, I will take it. It is fine with me. So, we've talked about who we thought, are like the best characters, and we've also kind of somewhat touched on who we think like the worst characters are. Mm-hmm. Who would you say personally out of the entire series, saga, whatever, the whole Star Wars universe, who's the most underrated character?
Underrated. You know what? I'm going to say it because she's my favorite character in terms of the companions from Knights of the Republic. Juhani. Like, not a lot of people talk about her, but she has such a great arc. And it can either be very short or very long, depending on how you interact with her. Mm-hmm. But she's just got a very gripping story that connected to me. And I feel like a lot of people kind of just overlook that character. And she's like one of the first, I think, if not the first character to introduce the Cathar species of Star Wars, where like these cat-like people that are kind of almost, I don't know if they're like noble, but they got this sort of like stance that like bleeds confidence.
Honestly, for me, I mean, I don't know, maybe some people will disagree, but I really do think that like 3PO is definitely a very underrated character.
Yeah.
Now, I guess this one might hurt a little bit. Who do you think's the most overrated character in all of Star Wars? I know mine. Mine's super easy.
The either Count Dooku, but that's kind of a stretch me saying that. If I had the one Star Wars character that kind of breathes underwater, the Jedi guy in Clone Wars and the movies.
Kit Fisto?
Kit Fisto. I think he's a little bit overrated, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Because like he's a good character. He's my brother's favorite character, I think, besides Yoda. So, but I would say probably him.
See, mine without even like skipping a beat for me, it's Boba Fett.
Ooh.
Yeah. I get that a lot every time I say it.
Even though, like in the comics and in the lore, he has all this stuff that's been added to him.
See, I haven't read much about Boba Fett because like it's just I cannot get over the fact that he gets killed purely on accident by a blind man with a stick in his hand.
You know what the funny thing is? It's like George said, if he was actually paid attention to the fans and saw how cool he was to the fans, he would have used him more. That's what he said.
Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I try so hard to give Boba Fett a chance, but every time I get to that scene in Return of the Jedi, I'm just like, and there it goes.
Hey, you can always watch the animated, the holiday special. He gets a lot of dialogue in that.
Yeah, there we go. That could be my version of Boba Fett.
With the
And
weird animated segment that he decided to randomly put in there.
yeah, yeah.
Never watched that film.
No, I've never watched the holiday special. I've never watched the Ewoks film. I never seen the Droids TV special either. I'm sticking with my movies.
I'm gonna correct you there. It's
Oh,
2 Ewok films.
oh yeah,
They made a
yes.
sequel to it.
Oh, that's right.
It's
I would say
supposed
thank you for correcting me, but I can't thank you for that.
supposedly the first one's not half bad. It's all right. The second one's where it falls.
Yeah, I have no interest in it for me. Like if maybe I was like 6 growing
Mhm.
up at that time, I might have interest, but definitely not nowadays.
Yeah.
So that Star Wars guy, I still love George Lucas for making Star Wars. How about you guys? Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
If George Lucas had not made Star Wars, we wouldn't have all these great things that we have. Like for
Mhm.
you, I mean, if George Lucas didn't make A New Hope, you wouldn't have Knights of the Old Republic.
Nope.
We wouldn't have like The Force Unleashed. We wouldn't have all these great characters that we love. We wouldn't have Obi-Wan. We wouldn't have Yoda.
We wouldn't have the new book series, The High Order, that I'm not sure how I feel about yet.
Like if George Lucas, that's the one thing I wish like even the toxic fans would like understand. Like if
Mhm.
George Lucas hadn't made these series of films, like we wouldn't all be this invested.
Yeah. I also want to comment. Oh, you were just clicked on it. Never mind.
Uh, George Lucas almost hired Steven Spielberg to direct the prequels.
I heard that, and I already Spielberg refused because Spielberg is the type of director who wants to be at the beginning, and he kind of wasn't at the beginning of that per se. Like he helped. If you ever watched the amazing mini documentary how Star Wars was saved in the edit, that is a hugely good story, and like he helps with that, but he wasn't part of the story creating process. So Spielberg kind of refused, and if he had done it, I don't think Disney would own it if Spielberg did say yes.
I definitely think it'd be interesting because, like, just recently here, like, some people's jaws might drop. I don't know if they do. I'm sorry, but I just watched the original trilogy of the Indiana Jones films
Mm-hmm.
for like the first time ever. My first Indiana Jones film was in theaters, and it was Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Oh,
Yeah, that was my first Indiana Jones film.
and you probably didn't like it.
It was one of, if it was at that time, it was probably the worst movie I had seen at that point in time.
Okay.
But I will say, if I had to rank them worst to best personally, Crystal Skull, Last Crusade, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Temple of Doom.
Temple of Doom being number one.
Yep.
Wow, that's like completely opposite of me.
Yeah, I
I
know.
think that is the worst of all them, and I haven't even watched it. I've just heard enough about it and seen clips where I'm like, no, I'm not interested.
Yeah, I surprisingly liked it the best. Like everybody says Raiders is the best, and I'm like, it's not bad. Like it is enjoyable.
I really love The Last Crusade. Just Sean Connery is just amazing.
Yeah, I see that's the opposite of me. He was the character I didn't like at all in that film, unfortunately. Which is, like I said, a sad thing to say, but I'm sorry.
You should be.
I apologize.
It's fine. Everyone has a different opinion.
Yep. That Star Wars guy, Darth Vader is overrated. Oh, I'm interested in why.
I think like the idea came from like, because I've had a fan talk about this. Like Darth Vader was supposed to be like this menacing guy in the background, like a menacing force in the dark. But now they kind of made him this super soldier that just is always in front of the battle line. That's kind of what one of my friends discussed that as, and that's like why he was kind of like, yeah, Darth Vader's getting a little too much.
Like, I guess in some aspects too, I can agree because, like, I mean, when you first meet Vader in A New Hope, it's like, oh man, this guy seems like pretty intimidating. And then we start getting into why he actually turned to the dark side, and then it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, oh,
More of a sympathetic character rather than a kick butt guy.
exactly, exactly. Like, don't get me wrong, Vader's still probably, I'd say, like my number three favorite character out of the entire series, but he is definitely watered down quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I put Kylo right above him, because at least for me, when you actually watch Kylo Ren in the sequel trilogy, we kind of actually get something for the first time that we've never actually fully seen on screen. We actually get to see a person in the dark side actually like progress.
Mm-hmm.
Because like when we first see Vader, he's already there. Maul's already there. Dooku's already there. We get a small little backstory with Dooku, and then you get to kind of see Anakin go, and then of course, obviously, we all know what happens with Anakin by now.
Mm-hmm.
That Star Wars guy. What if Indiana Jones was in Star Wars? Actually, I want to make a comment about this because I watched this film and it was freaking amazing. There's actually a fan film that actually ties together Indiana Jones and Star Wars together.
I think because like isn't like Indiana Jones secretly Han Solo or something? If because I might be thinking the same one. If it's like it was an old fan film that did that type of theory.
I can't even remember. It's been a little while since I've seen it, but it's like newer. Like
Okay.
it's like it's like Indiana Jones. They're like searching for this stuff, and they end up finding out stuff about like the Jedi and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, like these Imperials show up, and all of a sudden, like stormtroopers are chasing this girl in a truck and stuff. It's so weird and so bonkers, but it's
Mm-hmm.
so fun to watch.
There, if you really want to see it like that too, you know that Disney World experience of like Indiana Jones, that stunt show or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They did a Star Wars special where like Indiana Jones collects relics from Star Wars and even runs into Han Solo and all that.
That I would love to see that.
It's on YouTube, and even like Seth Green makes a cameo.
Seth Green. Oh man, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Robot Chicken.
Oh my god. What do you think people saying they want an R-rated Star Wars movie?
What do I think about it? I don't think it really works. I don't think it's a good idea. If you want the idea of an R film, I think what they really want more is a more serious or darker toned story rather than rated R. Because rated R is usually more gory, more more risque characters that, and that's like I don't think that really works for a Star Wars film as well as people would think. So I think what people really want more is a more serious or darker toned story, and they think it being rated R means they would get that when in reality it really doesn't.
Because like I don't know if you've heard this rumor or not, but there was talks that there are actually some writers they want to make a Star Wars horror film taking place on Hoth.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't mind seeing that because I'm a pretty big horror guy. Like I willingly will say I like my scares. I like my occasional like carnage candy kind of things, but I agree with you on that. I don't think our ratings would really work well with Star Wars.
Yeah, people got the wrong idea in the wrong place. Like they want a more serious story, and they think a rated R is going to get that. No, it's not. It's just adding more gore and things that kind of will just take away from the story. if you really want an R-rated experience that actually can pull up a good story, read the Dark Plagueis novels. But even then, it's like you don't really need all that gore to like tell a good Star Wars story. You really don't.
Because I think there's actually, I think it's Legends content now, but there's
Yeah.
actually one called Death Troopers,
Mm-hmm.
and like the cover of the novel is actually like a stormtrooper's helmet, like hanging on a hook, and there's like blood coming out of a mask. I haven't read it, but I see the cover and I'm like, oh, well, I mean that's something you don't really see very often in Star Wars.
True.
So I guess kind of somewhat to get back on like a fan film kind of talk, I guess. Have
Mm-hmm.
you seen the Kenobi fan film?
I've been keep meaning to do it because I love that actor. He should have been cast as the young Han Solo, honestly, because he's so good at doing a Harrison Ford impression. But I really intend to watch that. I just keep like, oh yeah, I add this to my watch to later. I haven't actually added to watch it later, but like, okay, I'm gonna watch this later, and then another month goes by. Oh yeah, I'm gonna watch it later. I'm gonna watch it later. I'm gonna watch it later. I need to watch it. Dang it.
It's actually very good, and yeah, he. I guess I don't know if you've seen it. I would assume you probably have, but he actually plays Han Solo in a fan film
Mm-hmm.
called Smuggler's Run, I think it is.
He should have been in the actual Han Solo movie. The guy that did it is pretty all right, and I actually enjoyed the Han Solo film. It was a fun film, not a. I don't know if it's like a super serious. Like I would really focus on it being in the canon. It was more of like, hey, this was fun to watch.
You know, I had a guy on my podcast here a few weeks back, and we were talking about how Solo really should have been a Disney Plus show.
Yeah.
I think it. Well, first of all, if they would have waited until December, like they wanted to do, I mean, the film probably would have done a lot better.
Well, I think another thing that hurt it was The Last Jedi. That's why they stopped doing at film after film after film. Is because people were just so pissed off about The Last Jedi that they didn't want to watch Solo and Retaliants.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I definitely think though, like Solo would have just been a better like Disney Plus show.
Yeah, and now we're probably not going to get a follow up with it because like it reveals that Darth Maul's still in it, which they
Yeah,
actually. Oh, go ahead.
well, because now with Clone Wars, I mean, obviously, Maul's around, so now it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, what happens to Maul after the Clone Wars? Like, how does he move his way into Crimson Dawn, and then how does he make his way to Malachor and Rebels? Like,
Yeah,
there's still so many unanswered questions, and I hope they actually build off of it.
because like one big issue I have, like not one big issue, but it's just like he's there and then he's just gone. And like another thing is like they use his Clone War voice, which I'm very happy for him that he gets to be in a big film. And he has such a passion for the character. He puts such great details. Like originally they were going to use the lightsaber in from episode 1, but that's destroyed. Like it's no longer exists. So they were like, okay, yeah, there has to have this from Rebels, or he's gonna have to have a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
So he brought that in, but they actually recorded lines with the original guy and told him that he was going to be the guy. And then last second, they kind of like cut him out and used the animated guy. So it kind of sucked for him, but I'm really happy for the animated guy, Sam, because he is so passionate about this stuff. It just sucks because I still love the original Maul voice just slightly more.
Now that was the original voice. Was that Ray Park or was that somebody else?
No, Ray Park. They actually had a guy dub over Ray Park because he had too light of a voice and he couldn't do a deep voice. I can't remember his name for the life of me, but he. There's a story about him talking like he did his 3 lines and George Lucas was like, "Hey, you're gonna be the new James Earl Jones, I guess, huh?" He's like, "Yes, George. Yes, I'm the new James Earl Jones, definitely."
See, I guess this is probably an unpopular opinion too. I mean, I do like Maul, but I also think he's a little on the overrated side. Because I mean, I don't know what it is, but I look at it as like they just won't let this guy die.
Well, I think a lot of people's problem is that he probably shouldn't have died in the first place.
Yeah, because I mean,
Because he would have,
essentially now it's a tease now in Phantom Menace.
yeah. Because like he would have been a much better motivation for Obi-Wan doing all this investigation stuff in episode 2, like because there's a purpose for him to be there. There's Maul, the guy who took away his um
Master.
master, basically. So that would have been a huge better draw for the story and a little bit more engaging.
I mean, like I said, like I like Maul. Like I skipped forward. I like that was the first thing I watched in Clone Wars was like his actual like return, how he actually comes back, and I'm just like, whoa, like what happened here? And
Mm-hmm.
but I know he like becomes Darth Maul once again, and then you see him again in Rebels, and you saw him again in Solo. I mean, what do you think it is like? Why they just won't let this character just be?
Well, technically, he's now finally done, if without spoiling any of the shows. But yeah, we're not going to see him in Kenobi unless it's a flashback. Let's just say that. But I think it's just because the potential was there, the fans wanted it, and then they realized, okay, we can correct this somewhat. We can make it so that way Darth Maul has more of a purpose now.
Yeah, because he's definitely up there now. Like for me, he's like right underneath Vader with like some like the top tier
Mm-hmm.
Sith, I guess you could still say, or Darksiders.
I think one thing I kind of don't like about the Maul story now, because like if you ever read the Plagueis novel, apparently he was just supposed to be an assassin. He wasn't supposed to be a full-fledged Sith. So Plagueis knew about him, but the Emperor or Palpatine was secretly training him to actually be a Sith Lord or whatever. So technically, in that film, Palpatine is the apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
Because the character is still, because Plagueis is still alive even though we never see him.
Yeah, he's alive during episode 1, but yeah, I think he's like finally dead around like episode 2.
Yeah.
Darth Vader versus Yoda. Who you got?
If you would go through the story wise, it has to be Darth Vader, because if that were to happen, Darth Vader would have to win. If I had to choose an actual battle, I'd probably say Yoda, but it could go either way. But if it had to be like in the main canon story, Vader would have to win.
Yeah. Again, as much as I love Yoda for like his entire like exile on Dagobah, like let's just say all of a sudden Vader found him on Dagobah. Yeah, I definitely think Vader would end up, winning because he's not using the Force as much. He's just, trying to be just exactly like Obi-Wan, just be this just little hermit living by himself. Plus, I think it'd be a good way for Vader to be a little more cocky and be like, hey, Palps, guess what I did? I killed somebody that you couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
How's that feel?
I've seen the Lego animated fan film trailer, and I think I may have seen the live action one, but I've always been intrigued by Bane, especially by the fact that he kind of was inspired by the KOTOR characters much, and I love that Mark Hamill got to play him in Clone Wars for a brief little bit. I'm also grateful that they didn't include KOTOR too much in Clone Wars, but Bane has been always an interesting character, and the fact that their fans now trying to make his story, hopefully they can make the whole thing, but if it's just the trailer, then that's great.
So I guess since you're a fan of the Old Republic, what's your thoughts on this High Republic coming out here in a few years?
I don't know. Like some of the concepts where I first heard, like it was gangs and pirates, that kind of sounds cool. But when you look at like the planning boards when they were first writing it, it kind of seems a bit concerning, and it seemed like a lot of their thoughts were in the wrong place. It seemed like they were more interested in like not telling a good story per se, but just a flashy experience. And I don't know how I feel about that.
Like I again, I don't know really anything about it, so I mean, like I'm interested because it's something new ish for me at least.
Like if you watch the trailer of them discussing it, they have like a list of things that are important. And like fifth, fourth, and third-ish is like a compelling story, a story that ends and characters that develop. Like those were lower than some of the things that were on like the things on like it should have been those things should have been the top, but instead they were lower just below the top. Those things
Hmm.
need to be the priority, and I think that's a problem.
I mean, I guess I don't know if it's gonna be just one film. If it's gonna be a
It
trilogy.
it's books. It's only going to be books and maybe some games. I don't think it's going to be a film.
Oh, it's books.
So it's comic books, hardback books, graphic novels, stuff like that. That's what it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be a film. It may get that eventually, but right now that's the plan for it, and maybe some games or something or audio some things.
Oh, okay. I've been under the impression these last few months that there was going to be a film.
No,
Oh wow, I feel like an idiot.
no, you're not.
The dark side is very depressed with me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So yeah, he just answered basically what you said. So okay,
Mhm.
well, okay. I'm more interested now.
I think Dark Horse Comics and Marvel are attached to it also, and a bunch of other names that I don't remember.
Hmm.
So like they all had like a big meeting of what the overarching story is, and then there are going to be characters that can intersect between things, but certain ones will focus on different characters or whatever. So it's supposed to be this like big universe or whatever, and I don't know how I think it's going to go. It looks like it's going to be sort of a clone of the Young Jedi comic books, which I never read, but that was something that happened after episode 6 kind of thing where they focused on more young Jedi characters that were up and coming. So a lot of people are like saying this is probably just going to be a rehash of that, but before the prequels.
Hmm. That might not be actually a bad read, possibly.
Potentially, yeah. It's going to be a lot because it's like I think it's like 7 different book companies, whether it's comic book or books. So it's like there's going to be a lot of material and varying prices. They're obviously not going to be the same because they're going to be different styles. Some are going to be comic books, some are going to be actual books, some are going to be graphic novels. So it's going to be one of those things that you really will need to be a dedicated fan in order to get all of it.
Mm-hmm. Have you read any of the comics lately from Star Wars?
I've watched the Vader theory slash, or sorry, the Star Wars theory slash Star Wars comic guy, and the other one. There's the three really big ones that do that, and I can't remember the third guy's name.
Oh, that's the stupendous wave. I believe it is.
No, the one that has the Chiss guy. What
Oh,
was his?
Thrawn.
Yeah, the guy that has Thrawn as his logo.
Oh, that's I think his name is like the Star Wars Reading Club.
Yeah, that guy. Those are the three I mainly watch. There's Star Wars comic book, Star Wars theory, and then that guy.
Because like I don't know if they've just been recently, but there's a bunch of comics for free on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
So I just downloaded a bunch. So I think they've got a majority of like the Vader comics on there, and I've been wanting to read those because, like you, I've watched Star Wars Theory and yeah, Star Wars comics. I've watched them talk about the Vader comics and
Mm-hmm.
high praises for those as well. And even that Star Wars guy, they even have Jedi Fallen Order comics. I've heard good things about them. I guess there's even like a Captain Phasma comic. There's
Yeah.
Poe Dameron. I know they just came out here recently with Kylo Ren. That one, I'd like to read the Kylo Ren one because again, second favorite character in
It
Star Wars.
actually, I heard it actually flushes out at like the Knights of Ren that we basically only hear good stuff about, but never actually get to see anything done with them.
Yeah, all they're doing is basically following the crew around essentially.
Mm-hmm.
See, and I think that's also another good thing too, to maybe even get people more interested in watching films, is actually like reading the books and reading the comics and stuff like that.
I just feel like if you're gonna have these, you shouldn't need to watch a book to know what the characters are per se, or read a book. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
so unless it's like its own thing, so it's a good thing, but it's also like one of those things where it's like, why wasn't this in the movie?
Yeah, exactly. I think that definitely with like the Vader comics, like I know they go really in depth of like Vader getting his lightsaber crystal
Yeah,
and going back to Coruscant and dealing with Inquisitors and trying to hunt down other Jedi and stuff like that.
that I'm more into because we already have a pretty well fleshed out idea of Vader. Where with like the Knights of Ren, we basically know nothing in the films.
Yeah, we really only get them in that small little force vision of Rey's, and then Snoke talking about them. And then, of course, we get to The Last Jedi, and we get
Nothing.
Praetorian Guards. Yeah, we get Praetorian Guards instead of the Knights of Ren. And then also we get to The Rise of Skywalker. Well, I will willingly say they're cool looking, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they don't do anything. And it's very disappointing because I feel like JJ could have probably have found a way to make them a bigger part of the movie, because every time I watch the trailer for The Rise of Skywalker and there's like that part of them panning over and the Knights of Ren are standing on top of that mountain,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm watching a car commercial. Like introducing the new Ford F-150 presented by the Knights of Ren.
I
It's
drive
like,
a Lincoln.
I drive a Chevy. That Star Wars guy, once again, what do you think of Colin Trevorrow's Episode 9? There's a fan audio version of Episode 9.
I've heard about it, like bits and pieces of it, and it kind of seemed a little bit weird.
Yeah, it seemed very far-fetched to me because, like, I watched, again, Star Wars Theory. He's my go-to Star Wars guy I go to,
Mm-hmm.
but I watched his videos talking about it, and yeah, I guess some of the things I like that would have happened, of course, Rey getting trained by Force Ghost Luke. I would have liked to have seen that anyway in the film. Luke haunting Kylo. I would have liked to have seen that even too a little bit.
If I remember, isn't like a ghost Obi-Wan also appear?
Yeah, during Rey's training, there's supposed to be Ghost Luke, Ghost Obi-Wan, Ghost Yoda, and I want to say Qui-Gon too, but that one don't take my word for that last one. And then yeah, they're supposed to go back to Coruscant. They're supposed to go to like the Jedi Temple, and there's apparently supposed to be these big creatures there now. Because like the city of Coruscant's basically like dead. Like there's like nothing there. There's moss growing everywhere, and basically looks like a little more like if Endor crashed into Coruscant, essentially,
Okay.
like a post-apocalyptic. That's what I was looking for. And yeah, like Poe, Finn, Rose, and 3PO were supposed to go and turn on the like a signal in the Jedi Temple and stuff where Obi-Wan was, where he sent out the signal to all the Jedi to not come back to the temple and everything. And yeah, there was supposed to be a bunch of weird things, and I'm a fan where I was satisfied with the way Rise of Skywalker went.
Hmm. I was fine with it. It didn't overcome Episode 8. Like I enjoyed watching it. It was a great nostalgia trip, but that trilogy, it was a bummer for me. But oh well.
Well, we still got Ryan Johnson's trilogy to maybe look forward to.
I think that got canceled. I think.
Has it actually been confirmed? Because I've been hearing like 1 week I'll hear, oh, it's canceled. Then I hear, oh no, it's still going. And
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not worried about it. I think Ryan Johnson can prove himself, but he's more of a like an action whodunit thriller guy. So if he makes it more like that rather than like a normal Star Wars film, I think he could do pretty all right.
this is another question I like asking people who didn't like the Last Jedi. If this would have been the first movie in his trilogy, would you have been for it?
So do you mean like if he started the trilogy with that film?
Yeah, if that would have been like the first film in like his trilogy.
If it was with new characters, it would make more sense maybe. But with like the pre-established stuff, it just left stuff unanswered, made new questions instead of answering the ones in the last film, and then it kind of took directions that were kind of half-baked.
Mm-hmm.
With new characters, maybe you could get away with that because this is the first time we're seeing their motives, while with these reestablished characters or established characters, we kind of know their motives and you kind of don't show a proper change. Like with Rey, she was nervous but brave. With The Last Jedi, she just became the ultimate hero per se, and she didn't get that progression to become that, which she should have. I think like she is a great hero character. I think like the episode 9 and 7 character of Rey is more Rey, where like she's trying to learn this and figure out why she's suddenly connected.
She's basically like in a sense trying to like find herself.
Yeah. Where in 8 she's like already figured herself out, even though it's an immediate continuation of 7. So it's like, where did that go?
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of the few Rey supporters. Like
I support Rey.
I know a lot of people like to say it. I personally don't think she's a Mary Sue, but that's just me.
I think the way they presented her in 8 really cemented that idea to like, because like she was just sort of learning, like, and you could say in episode 7 she had like a big adrenaline rush or something, but in like 8 she just had everything figured out right away, where it was kind of like a little weird. Like again, like they just made her already the hero when we haven't finished the journey to becoming a hero yet. If they would have done that just a little bit more at the beginning of 8 to explain that, then that whole Mary Sue crap would have been gone.
Yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from with that. You should watch Heir to the Empire and Dark Empire fan film. It's very good.
I think I may have seen that at one point. Let me search it up because I might have watched it before.
I actually don't think I've heard of either one of those fan films. Like I look up a bunch of fan films a lot, but I just haven't really entirely found one that like catches my eyes.
Okay, this is animated. Okay, I have not watched it. So it's basically, so it's an animated version of the books, I think. For what it looks like. So you can watch it instead of reading it. That's pretty cool. It's 3D animated. I have not seen these before.
Well, looks like you got something to do tonight.
Yeah. A lot of my fan films come from either like some old stuff from like the 2006 to 10 era, or the two new, like the Vader one and the Darth Maul one, and then the Saber Comp people, if you've ever watched them.
Possibly.
Do you remember Ryan versus Dorkman? That famous lightsaber fight, like of the two guys like in a warehouse, like just fighting each other, and they were wearing normal clothes.
Oh, I've seen something like that where I don't think it was a warehouse, but the one I seen, it was I think they're like out on the street fighting.
Yeah. So there's this competition that used to be called LCC, Lightsaber Choreograph Competition. Now it's called Saber Comp, where basically they judge your fan film based off the lightsaber fight. So it's all about the lightsaber fight and the narrative you make with it. They've been doing it for about to say like 15 plus years. I've actually
Wow.
entered twice in it, and it's a lot of fun. Actually, three times. And so basically, there's been so many great big films, fan films that have come from it, and they're all short form. If you just and they're very quick. Like the best ones are Loyalty, Fight Within, Ryan versus Dorkman, Ryan versus Brandon 2, The Full Measure of Demotion, and many others that if I could have all day, I could name them. But there's just so many great films that have come out of them, and they do this competition every year. They've just started accepting applications for this year's, obviously, but they've extended the deadline to December 1st because of this whole outbreak. So if you ever wanted to try and make a fan film of just a lightsaber fight, you could submit it to these guys. You just got to follow their rules.
Hmm. I actually do have like they're gonna start out as novels, but I'd eventually like to make them maybe into like a fan film kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have one called March to the Temple.
Okay.
Essentially, it literally takes place like immediately, like minutes after Revenge of the Sith, and it involves a Jedi Master and his two Padawans. They're essentially trying to, find out what happened, scour the galaxy. Eventually, they're going to make their way to Coruscant, where they're going to, of course, meet Vader and have a big thing with him. And that's about as far as I got. Like, I have the
Mm.
ending, but I don't want to like tell anymore
Yeah,
because,
exactly. It's if you as soon as you tell people before it's finished, then it's out there, and then people could accidentally take it or intentionally.
yeah, exactly. And that's something I don't want. Like, I even have another one I'm working on. It's called Forces of Fate.
Mm-hmm.
It's mine's going to take place before the Force Awakens, so it's going to take place essentially in the sequel trilogy.
Okay.
And that's about as far as I'm going to go with that. And I'm
Okay.
also rewriting The Last Jedi to make it
Sweet.
how I would like to see it.
Cool. I had a friend who used to be a big YouTuber back in the day called Rich Alvarez. He did a series called Stupid Mario Brothers, where it was kind of like the Mario Brothers in the real world, but they also had lightsabers, and it was kind of like anime inspired and Arthur lore story. It's like this weird mashup plus old classic YouTube, and it was pretty good. And he actually got sponsorships to make a Star Wars fan series, but I don't know what happened to it. But supposedly it was supposed to take place like way before like even the Old Republic, potentially. They
Oh,
kind of gave me misinformation a lot because they didn't want to fully reveal it because they're in California and I'm just a friend of theirs online that played games with them now and then.
yeah. Like, I'm a very creative guy. Like, I write stuff down on paper. I could easily come up with a story, like, at the top of my head. I could make up a Star Wars story, essentially, we could say.
Okay, AK, yes, it's beam swords. He's from that Discord. Yes, there were beam swords in the stupid Mario Brothers because beam swords is what they were called in Smash Brothers because they had a lightsaber like weapon. Yes, beam swords, even though they look and sound exactly like lightsabers. You
They're
got me
called,
there, AK.
but they're called beam swords. Gotcha.
Yeah. They
Huh.
actually they did the dark saber before the dark saber, I believe. They actually had a dark core lightsaber, and they even had one that was three colored before like the TV shows did it. I don't know about the video games or the books, but they did it beforehand with stupid Mario Brothers.
The dark saber is an interesting lightsaber. I'd love to see more of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I guess what do you think is like it takes to make a good Star Wars fan film? Because I mean, a lot of people even say sometimes even the fan films are like better than even like the regular films?
It really depends on what you put into it, the care you put into it, and like how much you just got to be passionate about it. There's like sometimes there'll be fan films that like you do it and it looks good, but the story doesn't connect, or you were too ambitious, or you were too green, I guess. Like you're not fully there with writing. So like you need to have someone that's experienced and passionate. Passion can get you very far, and there's some good fan films with that, but they're usually the shorter ones if you're just going off passion. If you're trying to make a long fan film, you need someone who's experienced.
Have you actually made any fan films?
Besides my simplistic entries for LCC or Sabercomp, not really. I've tried a couple times, but I haven't made anything long form. My Sabercomp ones were literally me in the real world. Like it wasn't fully Star Wars. Like for example, the one that has had the most success in the competitions that I've entered of mine was called "The Glass Is Half Empty," where it's me and my brother. Well, for background, sometimes each year they do a theme to the fight, and this year's theme or last year's theme was balance. So I was teaching my brother that you don't need to have a balanced fight style. You can lean into something more. If you try and balance everything at once, it doesn't work. So the way I taught him that was he had to hold a cup of water in his hand, and I had to as well. And whoever could get the water out of the opponent's cup first was the winner. And there's also another lesson in there as well. It's about 3 minutes to film. And we got third place in the fan vote category. The rest of it was all judges' criteria. We didn't win any awards for that, sadly, but we did get third in the fan vote. I really campaigned hard to make sure like people saw it and thought it was good and then vote for it.
Yeah, like I said, for fan films, yes, I can definitely. I will say, yeah. I mean, sometimes they are better than even the films, or they give you kind of even like a different look at the films too.
Mm-hmm.
You guys saw Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. It's kind of like Star Wars.
Not really. No. It's a sci-fi that's fun and adventuristic. That's about all it has the same. I love Guardians of the Galaxy. It's got that old school vibe, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the same as Star Wars. And that's not me knocking on Guardians of the Galaxy. It's probably one of the best films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Easily. Like
second one, kind of. Like it helped developed one of my favorite characters for the Infinity War and Endgame movies, Nebula. It helped develop that character a bit. But to say it's the same as Star Wars, that's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, I agree with that. What does Star Wars food taste like? I want to know and hope it doesn't taste bad.
Tastes like food.
The one thing I would never want to eat are those nasty looking portions from The Force Awakens. Every time I see Daisy Ridley eating one of those, I gag.
Do you mean the porgs?
No, those.
Okay. Never mind. The portion, yeah. The water food thing. Okay.
Yeah, those just no, thank you. Tom Holland wants to play a Jedi in Star Wars.
That'd be cool.
I like Tom Holland. I actually think he's a very good actor. He's going to be in the upcoming Uncharted movie.
Ooh.
Which I just started getting into Uncharted, and I think they're pretty fun. Again, I think Tom Holland's a pretty good actor.
I just wonder if this is going to be like a scenario like Tim Curry has always wanted to play the Joker, or he had the opportunity to, and he kind of missed out. And same with the guy who played Green Goblin in Spider-Man. He really wanted to play the Joker. But they both have never had the opportunity. I just wonder if Tom Holland's going to end up being in that same boat, whereas like it would have been amazing to have them, but maybe they won't get the opportunity. I hope that won't happen.
Yeah, me too. Willem Dafoe, that's the guy who plays the Green Goblin in the Spider-Man movie. I mean, I've seen a lot of just fan-made pictures of him as the Joker, and
He'd be great.
He would be an amazing Joker. Nothing against like Joaquin Phoenix or Heath Ledger or anybody else who's played the Joker. I think he would just kill it.
Like Tim Curry
Voting
did.
for, yeah, exactly.
He killed
like,
it.
He killed it. Haha. Perfect.
Thank you. Sorry, I had to get that joke out.
Hey, it's totally okay. But no, I think like Tom Holland could probably do good. I mean, he's got that younger look, and not even that, but I think he could play like a Padawan, and I think he's got the acrobatic kind of thing to possibly be a Jedi. Did you know Paul Walker almost played Anakin Skywalker? I didn't know about Paul Walker. Like I said earlier in the podcast, I knew about Leonardo DiCaprio.
Now, this may be a little bit off topic, but I would love to see, and he's mentioned that he would love to use this weapon, but he never has had the opportunity yet. I would love to see Jackie Chan do something with Star Wars, like just a scene even.
Jackie Chan. Oh, I mean, Donnie Yen, he proved he could do something in Rogue One. But I'd love to see Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan's probably one of my favorite actors in all of like movie history.
I just think he and his studio could make such a compelling fight. And he'd maybe throw a little bit of his Jackie Chan style in it. Like, I don't know if that would a whole 100% work, but I would love to just see him try to make it work. You know what I mean?
I would just love to see him in the middle of the Jedi Temple fighting, getting kicked and knocked into like statues, and him doing his crazy Jackie Chan stuff, just trying to save the statue.
Yeah.
I mean, even a film like that, you wouldn't even need like lightsabers. You could just use like a stick, like Donnie Yen had.
Mm-hmm. I can never remember that character's name. That's like one of my few. I love Rogue One, but I can't remember the characters' names. They're just kind of like, oh, that guy and that guy. That's kind of how deep they kind of went with those characters. That's like my one problem with Rogue One. They should have let us get to really know these characters a bit more, I think.
Oh, Donnie Yen's character?
Yeah.
Chirrut Imwe is his name.
Okay.
He's my favorite character in that whole movie.
Mm-hmm. He's so good.
Of course, his unfortunate, ending in the film, which is very depressing to see, but I definitely agree with you on that. I think we should have been able to get a little more familiar with the characters.
Mm-hmm.
So, man, I just kind of start closing out the podcast here. The last thing I think I wanted to bring up is because a couple of weeks ago was the 40th anniversary of The Empire Strikes Back. Yeah, that's crazy to think. I mean, we've been with Star Wars for 42 years, and we're already on the 40th anniversary of what, for me personally, is my favorite and personally also the best Star Wars out of the entire saga. So I guess kind of to get into it, what's your favorite part of The Empire Strikes Back?
Probably its story, really. Just it's pretty well crafted. Like, some people may not like the Ewoks that much, but it's still a dang good story that is very compelling.
The Ewoks is Return of the Jedi.
Oh, fudge. Yeah. I guess. Yeah, I just realized I quoted the wrong film, but the story itself, yeah, is really good. The twists, it kind of, at the time, yeah, it was probably a bummer to watch because it had sort of a not so happy ending, but watching it back and with the other films, it definitely helps set itself up to be more than just a kid's film.
Oh yeah, I was about to say Return of the Jedi now. Empire Strikes Back is the first Star Wars film that I ever saw. I remember sitting there as a little 5-6-year-old little SPC. And I even remember the television station. It was TBS. Me and my dad were looking for something to watch, and we turned it on right when the Battle of Hoth was beginning. And seeing them AT-AT, seeing all the snow troopers, seeing the snow speeders and all that, like, it caught my attention. And of course, seeing Luke with his lightsaber and all that. I missed obviously, of course, I missed Luke with his encounter with the Wampa and Han Solo cutting open the Tauntaun and all that. Like I missed all that, which I obviously didn't miss a very important part of the film, but yeah, it's the story. Like the story just it's so good because it's one of the few films where like the heroes don't need to win in order to tell a really good story.
Mm-hmm.
Much like I guess I don't know what your taking is, but like that's why I put Avengers Infinity War on the top of my MCU list because like I like it occasionally when the heroes actually lose
Mm-hmm.
because it really just shows how powerful their actual foe is. Because the Empire is my favorite like faction in all of Star Wars too. They have such a powerful like grip on the galaxy.
Yeah, that's very. Sorry if I ask a question. If I ask questions, there's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely not, man. That's why we're here. Ask questions.
Now, I have a question for you, Star Wars guy. Did you bring up Tom Holland because he's trending on Twitter right now for a joke reason?
Oh boy.
At least it seems like a joke reason. There's, like the party is over trend. So they'll put celebrity's name here, party is over. Apparently, they're trying to do that with Tom Holland, except I think it's a meme by what it looked like. I hope it is. If it's an actual scandal, a news site will probably report it soon. But I think he also had a question for us. What if the Empire did win against the Rebel Alliance? We probably wouldn't have any more story to tell.
I actually would like to see because I know Marvel they're going to be doing a thing on Disney Plus called What If and doing like different scenarios. I would love to see that. Like, what if the Empire ended up winning at the end of Return of the Jedi?
I feel like that type of scenario would be good to see, but like in terms of future stories, it's either you build up another rebel empire or you just show the misery of the people.
Yeah,
And it's just like it's definitely one of those things that's better for a one-off rather than continuing a story. I think because we did kind of have a what if series before called Star Wars Infinites, which was a comic book series, and it took each movie. What if something happened differently each time? Like, what if Luke's bomb that went into the Death Star was actually a dud and it didn't go off? What if in episode 5 Luke actually stayed and trained? What if in episode 6 something else happened? I can't remember each step, but they had like interesting paths that were really good. I think the theory and comic book guy both covered them if you want to watch them.
yeah. I thought about doing that too. Like I wrote down a whole bunch. Like I had what if Qui-Gon survived Darth Maul on Naboo? What if Jango Fett survived Geonosis? Like it was a lot of survived at the first. Or what if Obi-Wan killed Anakin on Mustafar?
Mm-hmm.
Like I've had so many, and I put a lot of time and a lot of effort into like, okay, how could this like play out with like the remainder of the story and all that.
You could call it Star Wars Infinite Possibilities or something. Because there's already Star Wars Infinites. You could just try and
Loosely use the name.
Yeah, well, technically anything just pirate off the name. I'm sure that won't lead to any problems.
Because even eventually here on one of these podcasts, kind of like I told you earlier, how I'm rewriting The Last Jedi, I want to do a podcast where I basically tell my version of the sequel trilogy, like how it could go, what I would change, and how it could flow a lot better.
Mm-hmm. That would be really good. Because there'd be people who have tried that before, but it's always great to hear like different takes and like how people get their creative juices, and that's like a great way of even starting. Because like so many great artists like do copying or twisting of original stories to then get good at making their own original content.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, like Sherlock Holmes is public domain. How many millions of people have used Sherlock to then hone their crafts? The same with other stories too.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it because like there was even like a day at work, like I sat there and I thought about it like the whole day, like, oh, okay, I could have this, I could have Kylo do this, have Ray do this, have this person do that. And
Mm-hmm.
like it's again, like I keep saying, it's not that, I'm dissing Ryan Johnson. It's just how I would have liked to have said and perceived The Last Jedi. And even The Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker, even as much as I love them both. Yeah, that Star Wars guy, I'm still working on him. Like I said, right now, I'm more in like the writing it in like a kind of novelization kind of way, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think that is going to do it, man. You got any closing comments?
Um, have a wonderful May the 4th. You're probably going to be hearing this after it, though, most likely. So enjoy Star Wars, have fun, God bless, stay safe in these times, and follow George the Jedi at twitch.tv/George the Jedi.
Yes, I definitely, man. I mean, it was great having you on. We've literally only known each other for probably 24 hours, but this was a very fun, insightful, and very knowledgeable podcast. So thank you very much for being on.
Glad to be here. Hopefully we can get some more podcasts under our belt in the future. Maybe even have more guests on together and have like a multi discussion.
Have kind of like a Jedi Council kind of meeting kind of thing.
Yes. Or the dark side of Empire discussion thing. I'm losing my train of thought. We should probably end this before I go mad.
So, alrighty, guys, that is going to do it for this May the 4th special podcast. Again, I want to thank George the Jedi for being on. Great guest. We're definitely going to have him back on. Make sure you guys also stay tuned for future podcasts. And like this video if you haven't, subscribed if you haven't already. See you guys, and may the Force be with you all.
Good night.